Welcome back to the Four Bells and Workout from Home number 110. Today we find ourselves in week 6, the end of our squat mobility and leg strength cycle. We're going to do it slightly different. We are not going to test on Mondays like we normally do. We're going to give you the rest of this week to still work on your mobility, and we will test a workout from home number, how can I do math, number 112. That is when we will test our metrics for our mobility, give you another full week of time to work on that mobility. So of course, as there's no strength component to it, we're just looking at how our mobility is improved. We'll give you guys a few more days to do that. So today, we are still going to be looking at squatting strength and mobility. That is going to be featured in this workout today. So how do we get ourselves ready? We are going to start off with 3 things. We're going to do the squat hangout, which is your bread and butter. It's something you should be doing every day at this point. And 30 seconds is a drop in the ocean. It should be super easy at this point. From there, we're going to get into the Hindu squat. The Hindu squat, the brother of the Hindu push-up, we're going to talk about how that relates. Those two relate together. But essentially, a great exercise for training deep knee compression and deep hip flexion. Basically, how can you get into deep squat positions without having to worry about ankle dorsiflexion? Last but not least, everyone's metric for this week, the overhead squat, a fantastic diagnostic tool as well as general mobility tool. We're going to do these 3 things 3 times in the warm-up. Let's take a look at them. Squat hangout should be super familiar now. We should know what we need to be doing. If you've been following along with our squat mobility videos, find a position that works best for you. If you find just hanging out here is not doable for you, but it works if you can hold onto a coffee table, or maybe if you can hold onto a post or stay a little bit more upright, use something to help you. Of course, play around with any squat positions you want to work with. Does that mean we're going to look at like hip internal and external rotation? Are we going to look at trying to push those knees out? Are we going to play around with bringing the knees forward, trying to work the ankles? Find the things that work best for you and do them for 30 seconds. So bear with me, there's a little bit of history around the Hindu squat. So if we go back many, many centuries, who were the best wrestlers in the world? The answer was India. So India was prolific in its Kushti wrestling, for not only outside of their wrestling prowess, but also for their strength and conditioning. The 2 cornerstones of Kushti wrestling back centuries ago, before the Turks got better at wrestling than everyone else across the world. And now India's not so good. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What they had is 2 movements, the Hindu squat and the Hindu push-up. The Dand and Badak is the pronunciation in Hindi for those 2. And what we're looking to do is get into a deep position of knee flexion. So if you're a grappler, you need to be used to getting pulled into deep, dark positions because people are going to squish you on the floor. And that's why the Hindu push-up is great at developing closed joint positions where we need to have strength. The good news about the Hindu squat as well is you don't need a ton of ankle mobility. So we're going to start on our train tracks with our toes pointing straight forwards. We're not going to worry about the arms just yet. All I'm going to think about is coming up onto the toes, and then from there I'm going to squat down and balance on the toes. So we notice I've got a huge amount of compression between the hamstring and the calf, and from there we're going to stand back up, heels down. So onto the toes, we squat down, and then from there we come back up. If we can get the arms involved. So that means I'm going to start with the hands by the chest. As I squat down, the hands come out, and as I stand up, the hands come back in. So that's how we're going to do our Hindu squat, using the arms to aid a little bit of momentum as we get into that very bottom, deep, dark squat position. Overhead squat time, we take our PVC pipe, we put it into the crease of our hip, extend those arms out till the elbows are locked out, and then we bring that overhead. So squeezing the shoulder blades together, I set myself up for wherever I normally squat. I haven't got some new fancy squat position all of a sudden. From here, we bring the hips down, pause for a full second at the bottom, stand all the way back up, a nice, deep, and luxurious overhead squat. We're doing that for 10 reps in the last of our exercises in our 3-round warm-up. The strength component today is 4 sets. Each set is 4 minutes and 30 seconds long, split up into 3 90-second windows of time. So what are we trying to address today? We are trying to address mobility and unilateral strength in the legs, which will primarily be done in the form of Bulgarian split squats, our first 90 seconds today. With our Bulgarian split squats, we're going to be looking to get into a deep position of not only hip flexion but hip extension, and we're going to do 8 reps per leg. With the Bulgarian split squat, ideally it's finding which leg is the weaker or less mobile or less stable side and attacking that guy first so it catches up with the other guy. From there into our second 90 seconds, we're going to practice getting into really deep, dark squat positions, particularly for those people who will, to put it bluntly, will just avoid it and be like, well, I know you're not really going to be able to get to me, I'm working at home, I'm going to do what makes me feel comfortable. We're going to try and get you out of your comfortable range of motion and play around with the Hindu squat, which also features in the warm-up, but also, if the Hindu squat is not working for you, another variation called the Asimov squat. So the idea with either of these, is going to be working for 45 seconds. So how many reps can I get done? But more importantly than smashing out a million reps is what quality of repetition can I get? So we're going to go over how to do both of those. Last but not least, we're going to do an antagonist pairing for all of the anterior chain work. We're going to do some posterior chain work. We're going to do some Romanian deadlifts today for 45 seconds. Of course, use whatever you have available. Is it barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells? If we can, we know we're in a fairly extended set, 45 seconds. It's a lot of time under tension. Start light and then try and get heavier as these 4 sets go on. So let's take a look at these 3. The Bulgarian split squat, great for single leg strength development, great for mobility, great for flexibility, but sometimes the setup is a little bit hard for people. So the fancy title for the Bulgarian split squat is the rear foot elevated split squat. So rear foot elevation is really going to be dependent on how mobile you are through the hips. So if you find you've got very tight hips, squats are tough for you, I'd recommend having not such a tall position to put your foot on. So as you can see for me, I'm going to use a bench kind of just below my kneecap. If that is too high for you, puts too much pressure on the hips, find something a little bit lower. So how do we get set up? We want to be roughly about the length and a portion of our foot away from the bench or the box that we're using. So my general rule of foot is I am 1, 2, 3 foot lengths away, which means if I bring my foot back, bingo, bango, there exactly it is. We're looking at not only development in strength on the working leg, but also flexibility in the trailing leg, which means that on my trailing leg, I'm looking to push the knee back to the bench behind me, drive the knee back. If I can, touch the knee gently to the floor, and then we drive back up. Of course, your ability to touch the knee to the floor is going to be dependent on limb length, box height, all that jazz. Push the knee back, we come all the way down to the floor, touch, and then we drive back up. Find your weaker leg first and do 8 reps, and then do your stronger, better, maybe more sexy side second. 8 and 8 per side. So we have a time set for either Hindu squats or Asimov squats. So if you find when you're doing the Hindu squat that puts a lot of pressure on the knees, particularly the patella tendon, then maybe the Hindu squat is not for you. But if you can, as always, we're going to have those feet on train track. We're going to use the arms for a little bit of momentum as we perform those Hindu squats, coming up onto the toes. But if that doesn't work for you, you can also try a variation on a squat. It's called the Asimov squat. So I learned this from one of my training mentors, a guy called Steve Maxwell, the almighty Steve Maxwell. And all you need is really like a handle or a banister or even a post. This, if you have like a high banister in your house, would be perfect for this. All we're going to do is just sit ourselves, hold onto the rail, and all I'm going to do is come and assist myself down into the deepest, darkest squat position I can, and then use the arms to assist me to stand up a little bit. Either way, I'm trying to go as low as possible. Notice how this vertical shin position takes the ankle mobility out of it. I don't need to worry about dorsiflexion because I can just keep the shin nice and vertical. We're just practicing getting that joint, that knee joint, and that hip joint as closed as possible. So it's either Hindu squats or the old Asimov squat for 45 seconds. So after the Hindu and Asimov squats, we've got another time set. We're going to do Romanian deadlifts for 45 seconds. You can use a bar, dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever you have. We're going to have those feet on train tracks again. Big chest, we push the hip back. Big stretch of the hamstring and the glutes, and then a big hip drive forward. So no matter what we're using, we're trying to move consistently for 45 seconds. A lot of time under tension. Trying to move consistently without too much rest. We don't want to be hanging out, having a cigarette at the top. But if we can, we're going to start light and get heavier as those sets go on. Today's conditioning piece features a 12-minute AMRAP. So if you know what AMRAP by now stands for, it stands for as many reps or rounds as possible within that 12-minute time frame. In each of our rounds today, we have to perform 3 things. We start off with some kind of aerobic piece. So that's 200 meters. That could be a 200-meter run, 100 meters away from your house and come back. Maybe you are blessed with a rowing machine or a ski erg, you could do 200 meters on that. If maybe you've got an Airdyne that only reads calories, you could do 20 calories on your Airdyne bike or any machine. And of course, if you don't have any of that available, it could be 50 turns of rope, 50 jumping jacks, 50 high knees. So you pick the aerobic component for you. From there, we're going to come into our 20 overhead squats. The overhead squat used in the warm-up today as well. If you can, try and add a smidgen of weight to it. So that's only really going to be applicable if you have an empty barbell at home. I don't think we need to go crazy with the weights, particularly with the overhead squat. We're trying to practice mobility, particularly as I usually find that when the weights get heavier on overhead squat, and also if you add a little bit of systemic fatigue and an oxygen deficit, probably find they're going to look a little bit worse as we go on. So do not go crazy. If you can add a little bit of weight, do so. Last but not least, we do add some weight to it. We're going to do 20 kettlebell swings. So if you've got a big heavy kettlebell, grab it and we're going to do 20 reps in a row. So let's take a look at how that should go down. So we have decided what we're going to do aerobic-wise. We're going to do a 200-meter run, 200-meter row. Maybe we're going to do 20 calories on a ski erg. Maybe I don't have any of that available, so I'm going to do 50 jumping jacks or 50 turns of a rope. Whenever that is done, we then come into our overhead squats today. So if you want to, you can use your PVC pipe that you used in your warm-up today, or you can use a barbell. Either way, I know we're trying to move with purpose because it's a conditioning piece, but making sure we still get a full range of motion and some beautiful looking overhead squats as we perform them for 20 reps. So onto our kettlebell swing, the last exercise in each round. We're doing it for 20 reps. We just want to think about that hinging position. So I want to be just outside of my kettlebell, and what we're looking for is that kind of 45 position. So what does that mean? It means I close my hip, about 45 degrees in the thigh, about 45 degrees in the torso, and then from there we're looking to snap that hip forwards explosively. So we should have a 3-point engagement. Glutes engaged, quads engaged, abs engaged, what we should be thinking about. So I step back, pull in, snap forwards, and we're going to perform 20 power forward, snappy kettlebell swings. So that's our conditioning piece today. 12-minute AMRAP, 200-meter run, 20 calories, 50 jumping jacks, whatever you choose, 20 overhead squats, 20 kettlebell swings, as many times as you can in 12 minutes. Have a glorious workout from Home 110, and let us know how you got on.